Hey everybody, my name is Jason and welcome to Crime on the Record. In this episode, we're going to be discussing a missing persons case. In November of 2021, Vladek Hasel went missing from Orlando, Florida. Now, Vladek, he's the type that has never met a stranger and he's well known in his community, so when he vanished without a trace, people immediately knew something was wrong. And in the months after his disappearance, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, private search organizations, and private investigators have spent countless hours searching for Vladek. Sadly, to this day, his whereabouts are still unknown. And tonight, Candace and I speak with Vladek's sisters to get more insight onto who he is and more details surrounding his case.
We're on with three of his sisters, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So we have Bethany, Irina,
And Jody.
and Jody. Okay. Awesome. So I guess the easiest thing to start with is just to tell us a little bit about him because, I mean, obviously we didn't know him. So, I think it kind of helps people, get invested in a case when they hear more about the person and they seem more real to them.
Yeah. I want to start by really thanking you guys so much for helping bringing awareness to Vladek's case. We so appreciate the more we can get his story out there. It truly helps. So thank you guys so much for allowing us to come on tonight. For Vladek, we adopted Vladek and Irina from Russia. Vladek was 5 years old. Irina was 11 in 2004. They were family from the get-go. Vladek has always been a energetic kid, always on the move, spending time outside, growing up, exploring, always on the go. He's always meeting new people and starting up conversations with strangers. And I remember when we were in Russia, he didn't speak any English at the time, so he wanted to run around Times Square, and we couldn't really communicate well about it's a lot of people around. You need to stay close. But a stranger kind of helped and communicated that, and they just kind of started up a conversation from there, and we ended up being invited back to that family's house for dinner.
Oh, wow.
Like, he just makes friends wherever he's at. And growing up, he's always wanted to join the Marines. It's always been a big life goal of his. He did end up joining and graduating to boot camp. He got a marksmanship award. And after graduating in end of 2018, he was given a desk position, which wasn't quite what Vladek was expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and based on what you're saying, I don't know
Yeah.
if a desk position was exactly his
Exactly.
personality. It doesn't sound like that would be his thing.
Yeah, it was quite not very different from what he expected. So he had that position for about 6 to 9 months. And he had told us that he spoke with the Marines and had mentioned that it was bringing up memories of his childhood in Russia, and that he wanted a leave or a discharge. So they provided that discharge, and they classified it as a failure to adapt discharge. So after leaving the Marines, he kind of, I feel like he struggled a lot with what was next for him, just because the Marines was his focus for so long.
Yeah.
And just finding his footing took a little bit. He lived with my dad for a bit of time, and then he lived with my older sister Carrie for a bit of time. When he was with Carrie, he was able to get more structure, and he had, he was working for a hospital as a janitor, and it was right at the beginning of COVID. right before COVID started, and then COVID hit full blown. And Carrie was a single mother at the time, so Vladek was able to continue to work to help bring in income while Carrie could stay home since daycares weren't open during this time during COVID, and Vladek was helping provide income for their household. Um,
Wow.
and after that, they moved to New Hampshire, and he had got a job doing, I think it was a UPS driver kind of job, and that kind of fell through. And then he kind of decided to come back to Florida, live with my dad. Summer of 2021, or yeah, so that's right, summer of 2020. He came back to Florida, and he was kind of going through waves of not knowing what was next again. And from what I see now in hindsight, was probably periods of what I perceive as periods of depression, just not knowing what to do from here.
Yeah.
And Dad didn't really want to put too much on his shoulders and press him too hard, because he kind of saw that a little bit too, and he didn't want to put too much pressure on him. So he was able to financially support Vladek, and whatever Vladek needed, Dad was able to provide. So he wasn't working that year before he went missing. He wasn't in school. But closer to like the beginning of 2021, Vladek kind of found his purpose again with helping those around him. He would start up conversations with the waitresses that Dad and him would go out to eat, and he would start up a conversation with the waiter. And if he heard that they were struggling in any way, like car was in the shop, anything, Vladek would leave a significant tip for him, like $300-$400.
That's so sweet.
It was because Dad was able to financially allow Vlad to do what he needed or wanted, and that was giving Vladek purpose. So he was fine with Vlad doing whatever he wanted with that money. So he would give significant tips, and there was homeless individuals that Vladek would do outreach for around the UCF East Orlando area. He would bring meals to people, and he had said that he took a couple people to the movies and ate with them at a restaurant and like all this stuff. And then he would also frequent businesses around University Boulevard a lot. So when he went missing and we went to the different areas of East Orlando, everyone remembered him. Like all these restaurants that he frequented, all these businesses on University. One restaurant had said, "Oh yeah, Vladek came in here a week and a half before he disappeared with like a homeless couple." And he had a meal with them, kind of thing. And like, "Oh yeah, Vladek would come to Foxhill 2 or 3 times a week." Like, he was well recognized. And then we went on a trip to Tennessee in November of 2021, and Vladek was invited to go, but he had decided last minute that he would stay home. And then when we got back from the trip, Vladek had been living with Dad for that year and a half prior. So when Dad got back to his apartment, Vladek wasn't there. So we've been trying to pick up the pieces since then to kind of determine what could have happened, because there's so many possibilities.
I did notice in reading that there had been some stuff that had come up that I could see how it would put some stress on him. Like, if I understand correctly, when he first started living with your dad, that was kind of an issue between him and his wife for him to be there?
Yes. When he first came back from New Hampshire, Dad didn't really clear it with his wife at the time. And they were living in a 2-bedroom condo, and they already had a couple staying with them as well. But Vladek needed a place to stay, so Dad said, "Come on." And he kind of slept on the couch for that period of time. And his wife was kind of putting pressure that Vlad should get a job. But Dad was seeing, what he perceived as maybe some low points that he didn't want to put too much on Vladek's plate. Dad and his wife at the time were already going through some things, so him and Vladek ended up moving out, and then eventually getting that apartment in East Orlando in November of 2020.
Yeah, and kind of want to go back to when he got out of the Marines. I will tell you, like, even if you know what you want to do, or you have an idea of what you want to do when you get out of the military, it's like the military is a way of life. I was in the Army for 7 years, and like, when you get out, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, or even regardless, you just have this, what do I do next? Because the military is very like specific. You know what you're doing. You know why
Right.
you're doing it. It's,
They kind of
even if you
for
don't
you.
necessarily have a purpose, you feel like you. So, I mean, and then you get out, and like, I work banking now. I don't really love it, but I don't know what else I want to do. So it's like, all right, it pays the bills.
Yeah.
But you just get out of the military and you're like, what am I supposed to do now?
Did he do well, like better with that kind of structure?
I think so. Like, when my family went to graduation to see him, he was so happy, so proud of his accomplishments, as were we. And like, you could just tell how he thrived in that kind of environment with structure, kind of thing. I was quite surprised that he had said that he wanted to get out of that, but I can also understand if he was given that kind of position, he's always on the move, so that doesn't really fit his personality very well.
Yeah. I could see how, getting out of what you thought was going to be your entire future, what you were probably going to do for life and retire doing, and then all of a sudden you're lost and you don't know what you're going to do now, and you don't have a huge passion for anything else. And then you go live with your dad, and that becomes an issue. I mean, it just seems like there was so much on him that I could see having some depression. Who
Yeah.
wouldn't? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, because I got out the first time and worked at a bank for a little while, and I was like, I just went back in. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, with my life. So I just went back in, and then I didn't want to go to Iraq every other year, so I did get out the second time, and that was it, because Candace and I were together then. But I mean, it's such a transition.
Yeah, and I was also gonna add how I'm sure COVID had an influence also, since that
Yeah.
was, it made the culture so much more isolating these last several years before
yes.
anything. So it was just not as easy maybe to like make friends. Although I know, like Vladek, he did really he was out and about a lot, so he was talking with a lot of people throughout the day, and he did make a couple close friends in the apartment complex where they lived, and they would play basketball regularly, and he would like talk with them at night and things like that. So, but yeah, for the most part, he was pretty isolated, and even those friends, they said that there was like a period of several weeks where they just didn't know where he was, and every time they would be playing basketball, they would call out his name because my dad's apartment was right next to the basketball court. So when they first met Vladek, whenever they played basketball, they'd just yell out his name, and he'd come out and play basketball. So out his name to come play, and like he would never come out. So they thought, oh, I guess he moved away. They just didn't know what happened. So, yeah, I was just
It seems like I had read too that he talked frequently about going off and just going off the grid, living in the woods.
He had made comments like that, but I feel like other possibilities are more plausible in his case.
Okay.
Vladek, he has big dreams, but he's also doesn't like to get dirty. He doesn't like the dark kind of thing, so I don't foresee him actually living off grid. It's more of a pipe dream,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But it has been a while, so could it be more of a possibility now? Sure. But I don't think that's what it was at the beginning.
Yeah. I know you were talking about too how he, got to the point where he was doing so much for other people. And another thing that I remember reading is that he had developed a huge interest in religion, and he
Mm-hmm.
was wanting to live more of a minimalist lifestyle, and that's why he was kind of giving stuff away and not spending money on himself.
Yeah, and that was a drastic change in his personality, I'd say. I noticed it kind of like the beginning of 2021. Like prior to that, Vladek is always, he's your typical guy. He wants the name brand shoes, the name brand clothes, that kind of thing.
Man, can't
The
blame
best
him there.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the typical stuff. But then around the beginning of 2021, it changed. Like he had said, things of this world are a distraction. Why do we need it if we're just going to be in heaven? He gave away his tablet. When they moved into the apartment at the end of 2020, Dad was like, "Let me get you a bed. Let me get you a bed." And Vladek's like, "No, I'm fine. I have an air mattress." And that's what he used. Like, Dad finally convinced him to let him get a mattress, whatever, like October of 2021. But Vladek never opened. It was one of those bed in a box things that comes out kind of thing, and Vladek never opened it. Like he was set on, I don't need much. I'm fine. Like, and that was just completely different from how he was growing up. Um, yeah. Vladek had said he broke his iPhone a few months, or I guess it was an Android smartphone, a few months before he went missing. He told Dad that he broke it because it was a distraction, and Dad was like, you need, let me get you a replacement phone. You have to have a phone." Vladek didn't really want to get another phone, and Arena and Dad eventually convinced him, "No, you have to have something. We have to be able to reach you." So he got like a flip phone, like something very easy, simple kind of thing. And like he didn't want to use internet and all this stuff. And after he went missing, we've had a PI volunteer his time and look into the phone records a little bit more closely. And we saw in the phone records that there was communication between him and someone else, like over 40 calls back and forth. And Vladek didn't
Wow.
phone very much, but like that was a lot. And then at the time that he broke his phone, he went without a phone for about 5 or so weeks. And then when he eventually got a new phone, he changed his phone number. And then after that time, there's no more communication with that person. So it was almost like it was someone that he was trying to create some space and some distance with, that maybe he had originally helped out, and now he might have been asking too much of him, that
Yeah.
he needed some distance there. So like there was things like that have also come up afterwards, just trying to piece together possibilities of what could have happened. So we're just trying to.
Do they know? I mean, I'm sure they know, but do you know if were the calls like back and forth, or were there a lot of calls from this person to him, or?
I don't know the details. I know there was back and forth, but I think the majority were to him, kind of thing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean that would make sense with him wanting to change the number. Well, first get rid of the phone and then change the number. That would make sense. If somebody's contacting me and I can't get them to stop. Yeah, I mean that makes
right.
sense.
Like that's the only thing I can think of, because when you break a phone, whatever, you get a replacement, you can still keep the same number. Like, why change it?
Yeah.
There's no more communication with that number after that point in time.
And around what time was that? Was that like how close around the time he disappeared?
That amount of calls I think was around like August, end of July, August of 2021. And then he got a new phone in September, end of September, and then he went missing in November of 2021.
Do you think that person could have had anything to do with his newfound, ideals and his huge interest in religion?
I don't think about religion, no, but I think it was someone that he helped out a lot. So I don't know if it's something that could play a part. I don't know if he's paranoid and trying to avoid anybody or afraid of anybody, or there's so many possibilities of what could be, kind of thing.
And the people that he ended up helping out were people that were into stuff they shouldn't have been into. And Vladek is just type of person, he's been sheltered most of his life. So him to just come out and make friends with strangers, not knowing too much about their backgrounds and stuff like that, or what they were getting into, might have something to do with towards the end.
Have they talked to those people about, to ensure that there were no, they're not suspects or
yeah,
did
there
anything?
are a few people that the sheriff's department is looking into. But yeah, Vladek always sees the good in others and, wants what's best for them, but there's a potential there of being taken advantage of.
Especially like he was flashing around a lot of cash in public. So if that's how someone's meeting him, then you gotta have to kind of automatically question their motives sometimes. Like, so he was just very
generous
and he just want to see the best in people and want to help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So not everybody will allow you to help them and not, do something in return. I don't know. People are not always as great as you are to them.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Unfortunately, sad truth.
I remember seeing, and I guess this is when he was with Carrie. Was that his or Carrie's child that there is the video out there of him, like she's in his lap or whatever?
Yeah, that's Carrie's daughter.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That really, I thought, showed a different side of him, because he was so just, I don't know. You could tell he was such a sensitive, sweet person. Like he was so good with her.
He was actually there in the hospital with Carrie when she was born, and Carrie had to stay in the hospital a week because she was premature. And Vladek stayed in the hospital, slept on the couch, and, kept her company all the time. So they did have a really special bond, him and his niece, for sure.
Yeah. Oh. It's got to be hard for even her as well, being so young. I'm sure she doesn't understand where he went.
Yeah. Carrie and her daughter came out and helped me put up flyers last summer, and I love her to death, but seeing her ask strangers, "Can you help me find my uncle?" It broke me to my core.
Oh gosh, yeah. I cannot even imagine. I can't. I mean, I'm not even gonna act like I can. Like, I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
So the area that but
Oh, go
the
ahead.
area that he was in, was it like I've never been to, what is it, Foxtail? I think, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Was that like on University in Alafaya? Was it in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's on
The-
University that's in between Alafaya and Rouse.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The apartment complex that they lived at was the place at Alafaya. So right there, close to between University and Colonial, it's right there on Alafaya.
Yeah.
And then he shared a car with my dad. So the majority of the time he had access to the car, but if dad had a doctor's appointment, Vladek would just choose to walk, or even days that he had the car, Vladek liked to walk. So he would walk to Foxtail or drive there or the businesses on University quite often. The Fox and the Foxtail manager said Vladek was a regular there, coming in 2 to 3 times a week, and he would spend a couple hours longer at times. And for that year before he went missing, and since Vladek isn't one to kind of sit down for too long, he was known to kind of pace in the coffee shop and listen to his music, drink his coffee, and that was kind of his thing. There had been some customers that have said things to Foxtail employees, be like, can you get him to sit down? Why is he pacing? All that. And Foxtail would kind of approach Vlad and be like, all right, you need to sit down, or you're humming or singing to your music, your headphones too loud, quiet down. And he would.
Who cares?
Kind of like, yeah.
What does it matter? What does it matter to them? Like, really?
He thought that he was
Yeah,
great
like he
singing.
had told us that people seem to really like my singing, maybe I can do something with that. And we never knew like where he was singing, but the manager at Foxtail said that, oh yeah, there'd be times that he'd be sitting at the table and kind of singing to his music, and people would kind of sit at the table with him and listen. So like that was kind of his safe place, like that was his refuge almost, like that's where he spent the most time.
That's
And
where, structure schedule.
yeah, like he would be there quite often. And then, he went there on November 4th. Kind of typical Vladek, just there, and the customer made a complaint, like, he's staring, he's making me uncomfortable, I'm going to leave. So since that customer left, they didn't really mention anything to Vladek. And then the customer came back and was like, hey, I see him still sitting outside your place of business, on the curb. I want to let you know I also had seen him place a pocket knife on the table.
Okay, Karen. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds
Right.
like I didn't get my way and get him kicked out. So let me
Yeah.
come up with a new
Yeah.
story.
So
Wow.
so when the person mentioned that, they, no weapon policy, so they had to have the sheriff's office come out to issue a trespass warning. But by that time, Vladek had already gone home. He wasn't there. So he had no idea of anything negative that could have happened during that Foxtail visit. So,
All right. So let me make. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me make sure I understand this. So he's going to this place regularly, like all the time,
yes.
and sounds like a lot of the customers don't have a problem. Sit with him while he's doing his thing or whatever. But you got a few that have an issue, and then sounds like I'm just gonna say some bullshit story about this pocket knife, and then all of a sudden he's got to go.
Well, he did recently buy a pocket knife.
Yeah, so I will mention, I do kind of believe that he brought a pocket knife because
Okay, fair. All right.
But I mean, was he wielding
But-
it at someone?
Right.
Because people have pocket
No.
knives.
I mean,
No.
With it on the table.
No, I don't believe he wasn't, flailing it around or anything like that.
Yeah.
But Vladek only sees the good. He doesn't know not to do certain things. He is sheltered a little bit.
I still
So
don't see anything wrong with that, though.
no,
He
I
didn't pull
don't
out a
either.
switchblade. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
I've,
either.
I've
But
seen dudes in Walmart in Florida with like a 9mm on their hip. Like, let's calm down. Like, really?
no, I believe, I'm right there with you. I get why they had to do it, but I hate that they had to do it. But he did tell my dad that he bought a pocket knife the day before this incident, and he told my dad that he bought it for protection. It was like a $60 pocket knife, and Dad's like, why do you need a $60 pocket knife? And Vladek's like, it's for protection. So he did buy one recently. So I could foresee him bringing it to Foxtail to kind of show off, hey, look what I got. Isn't this cool? To like people that he was chummy with, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he probably didn't realize a place of business you can't bring a pocket knife into. So he didn't know better.
I wouldn't either. I
So
honestly don't think I would have thought
Yeah.
anything of it.
I
yeah,
mean,
and
that's like the least Florida
yeah,
thing you can do.
yeah, like yeah.
And
So my dad left town the following day, Friday the 5th. And I already left town, and he went up to Tennessee to meet up with me and a few others for my birthday. We were going to be there for 10 days. So Vladek had elected to stay home. A couple days before Dad left town, Vladek was driving the car, and it had broken down at Waterford Lakes. And he called Dad and was like, it's broken down. I'm going to have to walk home. So he ended up walking home. And when he got home, he seemed kind of upset that the car broke down. And Dad and him talked about it and said, it's not a big deal. I have the money to fix it. It's an old car. We'll fix it. Let's get it in the shop, that kind of thing. And either that night or the next night, which would be Thursday the 4th, Vladek was kind of talking a little bit erratically about, like, you have to be about angels and demons, and you have to be dark to kill the dark. And it was kind of erratic and off the wall and manic, yeah, in a way. And Dad had told Jody about that conversation, and Jody had mentioned, you want to open there?
I mean, I thought that he should try calling, maybe have the police come do a wellness check just in case, or try to be more, more persuasive to get Vladek to go on a trip, because
Not be
I
home
was
alone.
just worried about him being home alone. Yeah. So, but my dad said that Vladek would know kind of what to say to the police if they came, and they wouldn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. And he didn't want to pressure him to go on the trip. So that's kind of. But I did notice that there was he was acting a bit manic.
Had he ever had any mental health issues or mania before?
Nothing diagnosed, no. So, but I mean, he also hasn't probably. I don't know if he's gotten in maybe in the Marines you get evaluations for mental health, but he's not outside of the Marines. He's not gotten any kind of sought any mental health treatment. So he wouldn't have had a diagnosis, or he wouldn't have been on any kind of medicines. So.
Well, and I know this, it may not be, but it can be a touchy subject for some people. And we know this personally because our children are adopted. But do they have his family history, medical history, or?
Do you know if anything?
No, they really don't have our medical history. We were kind of, I was taken away from my parents when I was 9 years old, and Vladek was 1 year old.
Okay.
And we haven't had contact. We weren't allowed to know anything about them, stuff like that. And the orphanage, I don't think they really, got any really information about us, other than who our parents were.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. We have one child who has complete records, and the other they cannot even provide records for the hospital that they were born in. So it's I get it.
Yeah.
So my dad left town that Friday. Vladek stayed home. He didn't have access to a car. He had called Arena in the wee hours Saturday mornings, like, late Friday night, like 1 a.m. Saturday morning kind of thing. And they had about a 5-minute conversation on the phone, just touching base. Like, they would call and talk to each other often. That was kind of a normal time for them to talk, and nothing was out of the ordinary. Everything was good. Later on that morning, Vladek walked back to Foxtail, and that's when they issued the sheriff's office to come back out to do the trespass warning. And then when the officer came out, Vladek was, as polite as ever, asking how his day was going, but you could tell he was confused about like why a trespass warning was even being issued. He didn't know what he did wrong, and they didn't really tell him anything. The officer said, it's a private business. They can issue a trespass warning for the shirt you wear, kind of thing. So like, he wasn't told that it was about a pocket knife that he had brought with him or anything. And you could just see the hurt in his eyes, like a place that he kind of, what I picture was a refuge that he spent so much time at, telling him they don't want him back. Like, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, yeah. And I did watch the video, the body cam footage, and I did have a question about that. So, and I don't mean this in a rude way whatsoever, because I know that with adoption too, sometimes there's past trauma that you don't even know about that causes people to shut down when they get emotional or upset or however. So I don't know how he handles things typically, but I noticed he seemed completely different, one, from the video with his niece. I mean, he just did not even seem like the same person. And also, he wasn't rude in any way. He was so polite to the officer, but he wasn't really listening to the officer. So I didn't know if he just
I
was
think he
not
was
paying attention or
stuck in his head, trying to figure out what was going on.
gotcha.
Not really,
And that's
not grasp.
kind of typical Vlad. Was
Yeah, kind of stuck in his head, not really catching.
I've always thought that Vladek probably had an undiagnosed like ADHD or some kind of neurodiverse whatever.
Always on the move.
Yeah.
So just attention kind of problems.
and we did go through a lot of trauma as kids.
Yeah, they went through a lot in Russia.
Abuse in the orphanage.
Which is very, very common. And I know a lot of, especially with the orphanage, a lot of times there's attachment issues, and that's what I meant by past trauma. I mean, a lot of people who've been through trauma and have attachment issues, they tend to shut down and get overwhelmed, so they can't really deal with something easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
What really got me in the body cam footage is when the officer asked him if he had his phone on him, and Vladek said no, it's back at the apartment complex, and pretty much everything that is seen on him, like he pulls out what's in his pockets, and you can see his Bank of America debit card, you can see his ID, all of that stuff is still missing. Everything he's wearing, the shoes that he's wearing is still missing. Like, it doesn't seem like he ever went back to the apartment complex. Because when my dad got back, the phone was there. The pocket knife was there at the apartment complex. He didn't bring it with him that Saturday. He stopped using his phone that day. Like, there was no more, all the text messages from that day on, phone calls were all missed. Text messages unread from that day on. Like, Arena had called him that night and he didn't answer, and she had called him multiple times throughout the week and he didn't answer. Like, my dad had sent him text messages to check in, but like, we weren't sure if our messages were getting through because we were in the mountains and signal was spotty, but like, Arena's went through and he didn't answer anything. So everything kind of stopped from that day. Like, when Dad left, he left him with $100 and a credit card, and he asked Vladek, do you want me to stock the fridge? And Vladek said, no, this is plenty, this is enough. And the only charge that's been on that credit card, was from Saturday, November 6th, 2021, when he bought that cup of coffee. There's been no charges since then. And Dad had told Vladek, I have an Amazon package coming in a few days. Can you bring it inside? And Vladek's like, yeah, no problem. So that package came that Monday, a couple days after the trespass incident. It was still there when Dad got back on the 15th.
So I know the guy, later on, and I get it, if nothing really happened that day that you can tie it to, it's hard to remember dates. So
Yeah.
I get that. But do they know that it was, or believe that it was the 15th or later? As in, like, do we believe that he did come back to the apartments after leaving Foxtail?
The official flyer from Orange County Sheriff's Office puts the last sighting as November 15th. My family goes with November 6th because that's the last day we see him on camera.
Yeah.
And just because, it really doesn't seem like he came back because the package was still outside the door and all that. And there's just a lot of variables.
But even if it was not the 15th and it was the week before that, there was still several days where he was not at the apartment. So where was he?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
why didn't he want to stay in an empty apartment? He usually loves staying by himself. What was it? What was going on that he didn't want to stay in an empty apartment?
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, for him to go, like you said, to this guy's apartment that's just a few hundred feet away from his own. Why would you want to go and stay there? So it seemed even more interesting to me if he left Foxtail and did come back that way. So, like, he made the point of coming back to the apartments, but still didn't go home.
Right. Yeah. And like out of breath at like 3 a.m. Like, why is he out of breath? Was he trying to avoid someone? Did he see something he wasn't supposed to? Like,
Why was he asking for a gun?
Why was he asking for a weapon? Like,
Yeah.
why did he buy a pocket knife a couple days before Dad left for protection, kind of thing?
And that's kind of an
And, like, he
escalation to
changed
go from
from a pocket knife to a gun.
Yeah.
And like, why did he change his phone number? A couple months before he went missing. There's just so many things that I worry about his safety and well-being.
Yeah.
He has never been without contact with family. He's always lived with family. Like Vladek, I believe wholeheartedly that he would have reached out by now and be like, I'm good. I'm doing my own thing. I'm like, he hasn't. Not even to Arena. He wouldn't let Arena worry. He wouldn't.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
the hurricane that hit this past fall, it flooded my dad's apartment complex. Like, the place where they lived. My dad's apartment got 3 feet of water. Thankfully, inside. Thankfully, he was in the midst of moving in with us and he wasn't there. But like, he lost practically everything. Like, we lost all of Vladek's belongings, like,
Oh.
everything. Like, it was like losing him again.
Oh,
And
I'm so sorry.
like, that was all over the news, like that apartment complex being gone. So like, I feel like he would have reached out after that point, checking in, like, are you guys okay? What happened? Like, but there's been no contact whatsoever. Like, we just need to know if he's okay. Like, if he's okay out there doing his own thing, supporting himself, that's great. That's amazing. And I support him in that. But we don't know. There's so many things that could have happened that I worry that he's not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to keep getting his face and name out there as much as possible until I know that he is okay out there. When I called in to report the missing persons case, and the detective came out to the apartment complex and spoke with my dad, he looked over Vladek's room with my dad. He saw a pair of gold legging pants on the chair in Vladek's room. And before even seeing a picture of Vladek, the detective started to describe Vladek to my dad. He's like, is Vladek, blondish brown hair, about 5'8", kind of hefty guy, wears like a black hoodie a lot, you know? And Dad's like, yeah, that describes him pretty well. And the officer was like, I know Vladek. He approached me and my partner just a week or two ago and thanked us for our service and started a conversation with us. And like those are the conversations and interactions we remember, because not many people will approach us and thank us for our job, for what we're doing. But that was just Vladek's way. Like he would start up conversations with complete strangers, and he would find something about them and start up a conversation wanting to know about them. And if there was a need that he could fill, he would try to help in any way he could. Like he's the kindest, most generous person. He'll give you the shirt off his back if he could. Like, and I fear like his generosity, someone might have taken advantage of that.
People remember their interactions with him, so I think it's just concerning that there's been so few tips coming in. I know that there needs to be more publicity about his case, and I wish the sheriff's office would share his flyer more often. But it's like it's so hard for me to believe that there's not been any tips that can give us good information yet.
Yeah, like Vladek has the type of personality that people remember. Like there's been so many people that have reached out to me on social media, complete strangers, about interactions that they remember with Vladek before he disappeared. Like this one person on Reddit messaged me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe, is that your brother in that flyer? Like I met him at the gym. Is this his phone number?" He started up a conversation with me, wanting to hear my story, and we talked for a while, and we were going to meet up and hang out, but we just never did. A complete stranger. And sure enough, that was Vladek's phone number. So
the summer.
Yeah, so this was like a few months before Vladek disappeared that they had this interaction, and they remembered him and they reached out. But like that just proves to me that that he has such a trouble personality that people will remember him. And there haven't been any sightings or interactions that people have mentioned since he disappeared. So like we just need to get his story out there so the right people do see it and realize that he is missing and come forward with that tip that we have so desperately been needing.
Yeah. And we also pray that if anybody has any information about Vladek's disappearance, that they would come forward. And we want to let Vladek know that we love him and that we miss him very much.
I'm so sorry y'all are dealing with this. I'm so sorry. I
We
can't imagine.
We love him so very much, and we just need to know he's okay. We just miss him so much.
I mean, he seems amazing. I will say, like my husband said, he doesn't, true crime's hard for him because it on a personal level, it bothers him. But being a therapist, I have to be able to compartmentalize. And so normally I don't get emotionally attached or have any kind of huge emotions. But I remember seeing him on that video and I just wanted to hug him. Like he just gives off such a, like you just want to hug him. He just seems so amazing.
He is the sweetest, kindest person you'll ever meet. This world needs him. We need him. Huge heart.
Generous, loving,
huge heart for others. He has given so much to so many. It's time that we as a community surround him and support him right now. We need everyone's help to find our brother. Just by sharing, just by getting his face out there, eventually we'll reach the one person who might know something and come forward. And that's all it takes.
Well, and that's why I offered, because like we said, we don't have 100,000 million followers like a lot of these podcasters, but you never know. I mean, it just takes one person.
Exactly. Everything helps. Everything matters. Everything, just one little click of a button can make all the difference in a case.
Yeah. And, one thing, and I'm sure they've thought of this. I mean, I'm sure detectives have thought of this, but if I know schizophrenia can come on early 20 to mid 20s, and if it was something like that, he may have thought that someone was after him. If
Yeah,
he
that's
has gone off grid, he probably doesn't look the same. I mean, he's
yeah.
probably he looks completely different.
Yeah, that's a possibility too, and that might be, if that was what happened, he might not even know who he is or how to reach out. So,
Or if he was in a mental health crisis, or like he had his first psychotic episode, what if he, came across the wrong person at the wrong time, and that could have also, just all kinds of things could have happened.
Is there any talk or thoughts? Because I know, sometimes there's just absolutely no clues, and then in some cases, it's like, well, there's whispers around town, but we don't know. I mean,
there's nothing.
oh my gosh,
No
like,
leads, no sightings, no direction of where to go to from here.
I
wow.
think the biggest problem is that in the very beginning of the case, the detectives determined it just seemed likely that Vladek is an adult, and the officer who interacted with him at Foxtail didn't see him in any kind of a crisis, so he must have just walked away and decided to go off, and that's not a crime. Which, great, but do your jobs and look for him and verify that, And so I feel like a lot of precious time was missed, and my family, we didn't actually find out about Foxtail until February, so that was 3 months later. The
Oh,
cops
wow.
Foxtail. So
About the trespass.
about the trespass, yeah, is what I mean. The trespass at Foxtail. So like, we didn't know that there could have been places where there could have been surveillance footage, but I don't know when they found out about the trespass warning, when they realized it, and if it was in time to try. But I mean, according to them, they were not able to get any other surveillance videos from any street cameras or businesses. Nothing. And
Am I
just
correct that they sent his PlayStation off for some kind of forensic?
We sent it to a nonprofit organization that had helped us with Vladek's search at the beginning. And they were going to try to see if they could find a way to log into it to see if any information could get gleaned from it. But they weren't able to get access to it. So unfortunately, nothing really became of that.
Oh, goodness. Are they still helping you, or do you guys have anyone that's still trying to help you with it?
That organization helped us for a good 6 months or so, and they were amazing. It's called Night Owl Reconnaissance. So grateful for their help at the beginning, because we didn't know where to go or what to do, and they kind of gave us a lot of direction. And then over the last summer, a private investigator has started volunteering his time last year, and he's been working the case, and he his name is Steve, and he's come out several times over the last 9 months, and he's searched the woods himself with a couple other people. He's talked with people that Vladek has been in contact with, and just trying to stir up more information that the sheriff's office can look into further. And he'll be coming back out again shortly, just to see what else we can pursue and what other routes we can look into further.
He's the SF Investigates on Twitter, right?
Yes, SF Investigate.
Yeah.
Yep.
He does seem to be really caring, and it
Yeah,
seems like when he gets involved, he's like a dog with a bone. So hopefully, that.
like, he's promised us, he's not gonna just walk away from the case, and I trust that he's gonna stick with it. I feel like he really got a personal connection just getting to know Vladek through the case, and he spent several hours talking to Vladek's close friend at the apartment complex, and at the end of their talk, the guy came back and he gave him a hug and he thanked him for spending time with him and being able to share those memories with him, kind of thing. So like he feels, like he knows Vladek and wants to be his friend.
Brian Vladek Hasel. He was 22 when he disappeared, and he's 24 years old now. His date of birth is December 20th, 1998. He's male, white, with blondish brown hair, blue eyes, 5 foot 8 inches, and around 220 pounds when he went missing. He was last seen on surveillance and body cam footage on November 6, 2021 at University Boulevard at Foxtail, leaving on foot, walking towards the direction of Wawa wearing a black hoodie, gray t-shirt, khaki shorts, black crew cut socks, and red slides. The last reported sighting of him was on the property complex known as the Place at Alafaya on November 15, 2021, with no other sightings since that time. He has no scars, no tattoos, and he does not have an accent. If you have any information on my brother, please reach out to Orange County Sheriff's Office. Thank you, guys.
I just want to say thank you to Vladek's sisters for talking with us tonight. I know that cannot be easy. Our hope is that this episode leads to information on Vladek's whereabouts. And if you're talking about Vladek on social media, please be sure to use the hashtag Team Vladek and hashtag Find Vladek. And before you go, be sure to subscribe and share this video as much as possible. We want to make sure that Vladek's name stays out there in the news. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.